Now that your pumpkin is thoroughly dried, it's time to give it some personality by adding some color to it. I've given you a bunch of acrylic paint. You can select the colors that you want to use. You can do traditional orange or a combination of colors that might be more personally meaningful to you. So we're going to start out by giving your pumpkin 3 coats of the dominant color, and then we're going to start adding details with the smaller brush that I've given you.
You're going to need a little bit of water, not a lot. Pick out the colors that you want to use. You're going to get a small paper plate that I provided you and a large paper plate that I provided you, plus your 2 paint brushes. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take your paint. You can choose any color that you want to. I'm going to go traditional. So make sure you shake your paint up really well before you open it. And these containers, they have a piece of plastic around the top, so you're going to have to remove that. And then you'll be able to pop the top off and just pour a little bit out into your small paper plate. And you definitely don't need a lot for this. Then you're going to take your paintbrush and make sure it's nice and clean. So I have a piece of paper towel under here, so that's good. And I would say go ahead and start on the bottom, so flip it over. And the first thing that you're going to do is give it 1 layer of paint. Just spread it around and try not to try to go in one direction so you don't have a bunch of brush marks. Okay, and I would say start off with a small amount of paint so that you don't, so it doesn't start chipping off. Okay, and as you flip it over, you're going to do something that you wouldn't think of, is you're going to go ahead and paint over the entire thing. So you're going to paint over all the features and make sure that the paint goes in and make it go into the mouth and everywhere.
So some important tips to think about while you're painting your pumpkin is to just put a thin coat of paint on for your base coat. And then you're going to let that dry, and then you're going to put on 2 more coats. You're going to make sure that every time you put on a coat of paint, the previous coat is thoroughly dry. And that way you're going to get a nice, rich surface. If you rush it, your paint is going to chip off. And if you skip the step of giving it 3 coats, it's not going to look very, the color's not going to look very intense. So the best way to do it is 3 layers, 3 thin layers. Notice that I'm trying not to touch it. Okay, now that I have 3 coats of orange and I let it dry, I'm ready to add the details. So starting with the white, I had put a couple drops of white on the plate after shaking it thoroughly. I'm going to start outlining the eyes very carefully with the small brush, one at a time. And again, just putting a light layer. You can always go over and put more on. To start with a light layer. And since I have the white out, I think it's a good idea to paint all the areas that are going to be white. So I'm going to do the teeth as well. And then once I let the white dry thoroughly and wash my brush thoroughly and dry it thoroughly, I can now add the black pupils. Again, you can choose whatever colors you want. It's best to add the black over the white rather than vice versa, the white over the black, because what happens is it tends to get a little muddy if you do it like that. So have fun with these, you guys. Get a little creative. I decided to add a little peacock feather to my hat and a little peace sign that I scratched in with my needle tool after the paint dried. That's actually called sgraffito. I scratched in some eyelashes as well. Take a look at your pumpkin and see what you'd like to add to it to make it really unique.